This morning, James really messes with us. Not that he hasn't messed with us in the past in the book of James, but this kind of hammers some things home, and sometimes we're slow to learn, and we don't like to have things hammered home. We like to say, let me think on it a little bit more. But James, this is where, again, it's a very proverbial type of book, and so he takes a shift. And he says, now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. Right? Not a bad idea. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 1 says, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. A meteor might hit us. Global warming might take over the entire earth. The stock market might collapse. You don't know. So we operate in faith and we trust God for what he does. Now, I think we all like the plan. I mean, if you were going to build a deck or do renovations on your house, you wouldn't just take a hammer and start hitting things willy-nilly. You have a plan to go with. Now, I haven't done a lot of home reconstruction, but I've talked to people who do, and they're starting a reconstruction project, and they have the whole thing planned, and they run into something in their home, and they go, oh, well, that changes the entire plan, because what we've discovered here messes everything up. You never know what you're going to find when you start on a project like that. Now, the purpose in planning here is what? It is to make money. Is there anything wrong with making money? No, the offering plates would be pretty empty. If we weren't making money, the tax coffers of the government would be pretty empty if people weren't making money. So that's not really the issue. The issue is going to be the purpose in planning here. So what is the purpose of these people? Today we will go to this city or that city and spend a year there, carry on business, and make some loot. What is their purpose? Is their purpose to have enough money to be generous with? Or is it kind of implied here that their purpose is to say, I want more money? Okay. What is our purpose supposed to be? All right, so Matthew chapter 6. Make sure you mark back in James in case I want to go back there. See, sometimes you plan things and then you just have to replan them. Okay, so Matthew chapter 6. We all know this material. It's very, very common, but it's good to hear. So starting at verse 19. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. Don't do it. But that's kind of what our culture teaches us to do. You need to store up money for yourselves. You need to have all this. Sometimes I come across somebody asking the question, is $2 million enough to retire on at age 70? It's like, wow, I'd like to find out. But the purpose is, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are good, your whole body is full of light. But if your eyes are bad, you're looking at the wrong stuff. Your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And no one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money, but we try. What is our purpose supposed to be? It's supposed to be to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then all the stuff that the world tells us we should be following is added to us. Jeremiah chapter 9. Again, this is one of those, it's just good if we all know this material so incredibly well. Jeremiah chapter 9. And I'm on verse 23 through 25. Let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, because we're supposed to be really smart, right? Aren't we impressed by really smart people? But let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, or the strong man boast of his strength. We're supposed to be strong, right? That's why Planet Fitness survives. How many fitness places do we have in Mount Pleasant? I mean, there's like Evolution Fitness. There's a ton of them. Not as many as marijuana shops, but there's a lot of them. Let the strong man not boast in his strength, or the rich man boast of his riches. But let him who boasts boast about this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on the earth. So this is what we're supposed to be pursuing, not the stuff that the world tells us to pursue. Why? You don't even know what will happen tomorrow. Again, the stock market could crash. The stock market could double. You don't know. You have no idea. Who knows? God knows. And how does he know? Because he's already in the future. So he already knows exactly what's going on there. We don't have a clue about tomorrow, yet we sometimes think like we have it all figured out. These people, we're going to go here. We're going to make some money. We're going to go there. We got this whole thing all figured out. It doesn't work that way. You might have all your goods and things in this culture. You would have it on wagons if you were going to move it. And your wagon might fall off the hill and all your goods might go tumbling down. You do not know, so therefore we need to be trusting God. What is your life? Now, if you ask many people, apart from Scripture, what is your life? They will tell you how great and majestic and wonderful they are in every respect. Oh, I've got this, I've got that going for me. What is your life? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. If we go to the book of Ecclesiastes, which is really a depressing book, except how it ends. It ends so well. Ecclesiastes. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What does a man gain from all his labor at which he toils under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. Apart from an understanding of God, an understanding of Christ, this is life. It is meaningless. This is very existentialist. The existentialist would say there is no God, therefore there can be no meaning, there can be no purpose. You just make the best of it, but you don't know what the best of it is because there's no standard by which to judge bestness. If you can make sense of that, you can be a philosopher. Gain some perspective on the big place, on your place rather in the big picture. I am fully aware that in 50 years, and my grandchildren might remember me, but nobody else really will. There will not be a monument to the glories of Hugo. It won't be there. My grandfather pastored a church up in Escanaba. And being curious, trying to find some history on him, I called him up once and said, hey, do you have any history, on maybe my grandfather? Who? Well, he pastored there in the 40s. Oh, we don't have any of those records at all. Oh, I would have loved to know some of the things that he did, some of the things he went through. I found some archives through the Converge. They've got, what do you call that when they've got all the archives? They're archives. That's what you call it. Yeah, archives. We were with 2 grandchildren for a few days. So if my mind is a little scrambled, that explains it. Because Evelyn, although she is adorable, she's 2. Okay, all right. So those of you with such experience, you understand. No. Nobody remembers my grandfather, except me. My mom does a little bit. But after that, no one's going to remember him. And when I'm gone, nobody's going to go through the various albums or archival things that I have, the few that I have, and say, oh, we should keep this because it talks about Johann Hugo Hergard. Are they going to keep that? Well, maybe in a file, but they'll never look at it. We are a vapor. However, only one life to live will soon be past. What's the rest? Only what's done for Christ will last. And that's got to be our perspective. Now, these people make great plans. Today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city. Don't do that. You're a vapor. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. So all of our planning is, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, I'm good. If not, let me know. And Lord, I hope I'm alive tomorrow that I can work to do your will. I mean, that's pretty humbling. These guys are making all these plans. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And God's perspective, I'm not sure if you're going to be alive tomorrow or not. So why don't you start with that? Right? And James is not being friendly here. This is pretty strong rebukes. We need to be submitted to God's sovereignty. If it is God's will, we will live and do this or that. God is sovereign, and even though tomorrow things might fall apart, does God fall apart? Does the will of God fall apart? Does the plan of God fall apart? No. So we rest in Him. Again, I've mentioned there are plans I had for my life. Did you know that when I was 5 years old, I was planning to be a missionary pilot with MAF? That was my plan. I have not flown an airplane. I've flown in some. To this point in my life, I've never flown an airplane. And if you have a pilot, they've got the dual yokes. And if a pilot were here and I'm sitting in the seat and the pilot would say, hey, you want to try flying this? No! Because I might make a mistake. The pilot would be good enough. He could compensate. But I'd still be very afraid of that. Or I've thought sometimes of maybe getting one of those ultralights. I mean, they are so cool. But I don't trust myself enough to do this. Although it was my plan from an early age, God had different plans. Now, what is first orders what is second and on down. All right. What is first orders everything else. If I choose to say, I will follow Christ with my life, then everything else, that's going to affect who I marry. It's going to affect how many children we have. It's going to affect where I work. It's going to affect everything. What is first, your first priority, orders all your other priorities. Okay? And so we need to have the priority of what God wants first, what God's will is. We need to have a worldview that says God is in charge. The way the world lives, the way the world operates, they're in charge, and therefore we have all kinds of chaos going on. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. Well, that's pretty harsh. If I make these plans and I tell other people about my great and wonderful plans, I'm boasting, and that's evil? Yes. Okay. I'm going to do these 20 great things. No. If I live, here are some things I would like to see God doing. Okay, through me, through other people. That's got to be the objective. When I plan for the greatness of all that I want my life to achieve, all that I want my life to be, I am being utterly self-centered and I am being evil. Instead, Lord, what is your will? Okay, what do you want in this situation, rather than simply assuming that what I want is best? Now, this is one of the verses in the Bible. I don't like this one. John, you understand? I don't like this one. This is tough. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Now, within the context, okay, guys, humble out. Make your plans according to the will of God. Okay, that's the immediate context. And if you know that this is good to do, to make all your plans according to the will of God, not to boast, not to be arrogant, great. And if you do those things, it's sin. So you know what you should do, you don't do it, it's sin. Now, here's my problem. Does this verse have a broader application? Does this verse apply to all of life? This is how bad it is with me. Okay, I'm walking in Walmart, and I see that somebody has taken an article of clothing, it's still in the hanger, and they go, oh, they just drop it on the floor. I walk by. You know what I do? I pick it up, I put it back. Why? Because if I know the good to do and I don't do it, I'm sinning. It's like, maybe I carry this too far, okay? I mean, there are people, they get paid to do that. That's part of their job. But if I look at it and it occurs to me, I should do that. Oh, why did I think that? Now I've got to do it. I'm walking somewhere and I see a chunk of litter on the ground. Okay, I'll pick it up because I know it's good to do. And if I don't do it, Now, am I taking this overboard? I might be, but I would rather take it overboard in my attempt to honor the Lord than leave that hunk of paper there. Because what happens to me is if I leave the hunk of paper and I walk 50 yards farther, that piece of paper is haunting me, and I've got to go back and pick it up. So, in this context, we need to plan according to the will of God in complete submission to the will of God, not boast, not brag, not say all of our schemes are wonderful. We need to rather to be humble and to say, God, if this is what you want, and if I don't do this, I'm sinning. If I don't do what God is saying here, I'm sinning. But I think there are many other things that God prompts us to do, and if we don't do them, we are sinning. So, is that harsh enough? Okay. I mean, even in the church context, it's really easy for us to overlook things. For example, this is something that we can all do. Just a really practical example. Have you ever noticed that sometimes the garbage can liners don't quite fit right? And then they slip down? What do most people then do when they have their garbage? They just jam it in the can, which results in a dirty garbage can. And when it's so easy just to lean over and to go, oh, here, let me fix that and put it back. Takes you 3 seconds, but it can save the custodial people a whole lot of work. And it's a minor thing, but is it what we should be doing for each other all the time? Should we be working to clean up each other's messes? No, everybody should clean up their own mess. No, we all work to clean up each other's messes. Okay. Now he gets really mean again. Now listen, you rich people. Wail and weep because of the misery that is coming on you. That's not what rich people think. They think that because they're rich, they're going to avoid that misery. They're going to have enough money to fund through, to have the funds to buy whatever it is they might have lost. Like, say, for example, you don't have insurance, but you got $1 billion. And a tornado comes through and destroys your house and deposits it in the creek next door. How upset are you going to be? Oh, we'll just build a new one. Okay. So, rich people, misery is coming upon you, misery that you cannot control. There's this assumption that health and wealth indicates a righteous life. That's kind of built into our thinking as Americans, because that anyone who works hard is going to have a good life and they're going to gain some wealth. All you got to do is work hard, and there it is. There's some validity to that. But there are other people who work really hard and terrible things happen to them and they lose all their money. Okay? These things happen. So we have an assumption that health and wealth indicates a righteous life. As we look in our society at the people who have got the health and the wealth, are they generally righteous? I'm not talking about our neighbors, in the big picture. You see all the famous people. I mean, you can't even watch some of these galas they have anymore because they're just obscene. They're horrible. But these are the people, they've gained wealth. So, you rich people. Now, it's how easy it is for us to say, well, Lord, they're talking to them, they're not talking to me. But if I compare my life situation and our financial state with people that I'm getting to know in Uganda, it's like, oh man, we got it made. There was a classroom, and the classroom, the students needed about $800, okay, in order to have a classroom that had a door on it, that had a decent floor. So every day the students, they would take all their furniture from one place, they'd bring it in, end of the day they'd put it back. All they needed was $800. Somebody came up with that for them, to provide for them $800 to furnish and build a classroom. That's nothing. What would it cost in America? $20,000, $30,000? Okay. I mean, that's just crazy stuff. So it's easy for us to simply say, oh, rich people, they're talking about them. You hear some of our politicians, I'll wax political for a moment, without names. Some of our politicians who are saying, the rich should pay their fair share. They're not referring to themselves. They might have 3 or 4 houses. They might take great vacations and travel anywhere they want, but the rich are always the people at the next level. So, listen, you rich people. And here he's talking to the people who are definitely working on making lots of money. What if earthly treasure might be a sign of damnation rather than righteousness? Well, there's a scary thought. What if all these rich people showing off their wealth are actually showing off the fact that they are in rebellion against God, getting all this stuff and to an extent worshiping it? Now, your wealth has rotted. Moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Does gold corrode? No. So wait a minute, we'll get to that. There are those who would say that gold does not corrode. Okay, it's neutral. Its outer layer is fully filled with electrons, so it doesn't want to give any away or take any back. But okay, so let's look at this. Okay, there are people who say, see, Scripture's wrong because gold doesn't corrode, so therefore the Bible's wrong. Okay, now we'll get to that. Now, I don't think I've ever, honey, have you ever had like moths in our closet? What do moths eat? They go after wool? What kind of material do they like to eat? Oh, cotton. Okay, so I doubt that, this is how you're going to find things like this. You're not looking for it. You go to take out your shirt and you go, oh, holy shirts. Look at all that. Okay, and it's not something that you go looking for. When you're doing remodeling stuff in your house, you don't start out by looking for trouble. But sometimes you find trouble as you go on because, maybe you've got one of those leaks that's been going on for 20 or 30 years that no one knows about because it's not been seen. The home that we had in Illinois, we had a leak in part of the roof, and I just saw it a little bit once in a while up in the ceiling. It wasn't that bad, but then when the guys were re-roofing it, they almost broke through that section because it had leaked for so long, the wood there was rotten. We usually find these things by surprise. And I think these rich people, they're going to be surprised when all the things they have depended upon fall apart. Now, we know that gold does not corrode. Silver tarnishes a little bit. So James is, let's let me read that because I wrote it, it was really good. We know that gold does not corrode. So as James speaks of this corrosion, he must be referencing that these metals are worthless in a time of misery. I think that's James's point. So you're holding on to all this stuff, and it's just worthless. You cannot depend upon it in a time of adversity. And when you face misery before God, it is worthless. What are you going to do? Oh, God, I don't want to go to hell. So, hey, here's a gold bar. There we go. As rust makes steel worthless, so adversity makes the precious metals that we might hope in have no actual value, makes them worthless. If you're sick and you're dying and you have $1 million in the bank, and the doctors say there's no cure for you, is that money going to help you? No. Okay, you're a goner. So when you go before God, unless you have Christ, you're a goner. So all these things that the world tells us to put our faith in, to put our trust in, are worthless. They're rotten things to put our faith in. Now again, James is not saying that gold rusts. He knew that. Okay, everybody who has ever dealt with gold knows it doesn't rust. Okay, so he's saying it's going to be worthless and it's going to be really, really bad for you. Now, their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. Their worthlessness is going to consume you. It's going to be terrible. This is the opposite of what people expect from wealth. They expect wealth to comfort them as time goes on. They expect their wealth to deliver them. How many people are there who get off of a charge because they can afford the most expensive lawyer? The people who just get stuck with the assigned lawyer, they don't do so well. They figure money can help me. It will not help you before God. Their corrosion will testify before you. Will testify against you rather and eat your flesh like fire. Now, the word here in the Greek for corrosion is actually poison. I'm not sure why it's translated as corrosion, but it's poison. Can wealth poison people's souls entirely and destroy them, especially before God? So their corrosion. So all the stuff that you've built yourself, all your little kingdoms, all your great dreams, will testify against you before God. The idols that we hoped in, their utter failure to help us, will be fuel for the consuming fires of judgment. They will betray us. As a matter of fact, they already have betrayed us because they're leading us into a false hope. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Is this the last day, like the world ends, or your last day? I'm not sure. Commentators, again, they vary on this. Go to Luke chapter 12. I think this is the idea that James is driving at. Luke chapter 12, familiar territory. Someday I'll have all of this memorized. But today is not that day. So starting at verse 16. He told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Okay, so he has such an abundance. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store all my grains and all my goods. I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? All the riches that the world has to offer are nothing. They are meaningless in the face of God and in the face of knowing him. What a dumb thing to do, seeking to gain worldly wealth at the cost of your own soul. Oh, that sounds like what Jesus said. You know, you pursue the world at the sake of your own soul. Now, he continues. All right, we got a little bit more to go. Look, the wages that you failed to, now here's how they gained their wealth. The wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You harvested your crops, and you cheated those who harvested them. Okay, didn't pay them. In this culture, you paid everybody by the day, because the markets, they were like you had food for the day, and it would spoil if it waited too long. So you got paid every day, and then you went home and you bought what you needed to buy on your way home. But these people, they cheated the workers out of the money that they were promised. Lack of payment altogether, or possibly finding ways to suppress wages. This would have increased the hoardings of the rich people. Okay, they're just after the loot. These are the two witness sources against you. Okay, the cries of the people that you have ripped off, and the ill-gotten gain that you have stored. What they needed to do was repent like Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus confronts Christ. He's rich. He's a chief tax collector. But he meets Jesus, and he says, I will pay back everybody. Was it double of what I owe them, or was it 4 times? 4 times. You know why it was 4 times? Because that's what you had to do when you stole from somebody. You had to pay 4 times the amount. We need to be generous. We're not going to go to Matthew 20, but it's in there. Rather than being stingy. I wonder if employers ever think, I'm going to pay these people $15 an hour, and I'm going to make $40 an hour off of the work that they do, and I'm going to bank all that for myself. Maybe a form of Christian capitalism would be, you know what? I'm going to pay my people $25 an hour, and I'll make $30. We'll all come up together. Something like that might be good. At least it would be generous. So these people, they've lived their life in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. Remember the rich man and Lazarus. Okay. Imagine you are a lion. Or we'll make this more practical. Let's say that you're a cow, and you're outside, and you've got to go for your own food, and you're kind of hungry a lot. You wish you could have more, and you look at the cow that's in the stall, and the cow is getting fat. They feed it every day, more than the cow could ever really need to eat. And what's happening to the cow? The cow is getting so big and huge and fat. And here's this cow looking at the poor skinny cow, looking at the fat one. Should the skinny cow be jealous of the fat one? The fat one is being fattened for the day of slaughter. Okay, so don't envy the riches of people. These people were living in a life of luxury, self-indulgence. And they were just fattening themselves for the day of slaughter. Wealth hoarding is not a biblical issue. We should not be hoarding our wealth. Okay, take that however God applies it to your heart. Again, we can say we are incredibly wealthy in comparison to the rest of the world. Well, maybe if somebody needs a classroom furnished for $800, we should just find out about it and cough that money up. Maybe we should be very careful that we're just simply not hoarding like these people were. Their hoarding was a self-dooming thing for them. This is really, really bad. You have condemned and murdered the innocent who are not opposing you. And I think what James is saying here is that because you ripped them off, they went hungry. And because they went hungry, because you ripped them off, they didn't have maybe the wages to seek the medical help that they needed when somebody was really sick and dying. Disabling people from making a decent living sentences them to a harsh life and can even lead to premature death. God holds these guilty people responsible. It is evil to harm people who have done nothing to harm you at all. That is incredibly evil. All right, I'm just going to skip ahead here, and I'll catch on this next week. Let me get to the application stuff. I thought it was going to come up short, and I always do that. I come up short, and I've gotten plenty of material. Okay, so here we go. Applications. All right, number 1, we get one priority. And our priority is not to make money, to give ourselves the good life. Everything flows from the priority or the priorities that we choose. Everything does. We, as followers of Christ, need to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. We do that, and we trust God with all the other stuff. We need to live a life worthy of the calling that we have received in the world around us. We need to be focused on doing God's will. We need to submit every plan that we might have to God's sovereignty. And God in his sovereignty might completely change the plans that we have because he's working for his glory, and his glory, of course, is our good. Beware the toxin of wealth. It can consume us. It can damage our soul so greatly before God. Now, be patient, encouraging each other. We'll get to that more next week. And so finally, we have a song from Paul, which is, this is the objective of our lives. This is our purpose. This is the one for whom we live, in whom we move, and in whom we have our being.